I think one of the biggest informations that I completely forgot to include, period, is that Niko's son isn't actually with Niko by the end of the episode. When everyone was trying to run away from Unithor in the final scene, you might notice this moment where Cuphead tries to grab Niko and Niko's son. However, if you pay very close attention, you'll realize that that's not actually what really happens in that scene. Because as it turns out, the item that Cuphead got was actually just a normal lampshade. I know some of you guys are coping and think that the sun is actually underneath the lampshade. That's why I want to give you this screenshot where you can clearly see the lampshade and the sun at the same time. This might also be the last time we see the sun in this episode, since everything else after this is just, well, the brightness of a normal lamp. I'm honestly kind of mad at myself for completely forgetting to include this in my original video, because I made the mistake of assuming people already knew the information already, which is, yeah, that was a mistake on my part. I'm really sorry about that. Man, to think I could have traumatized more one-shot fans, what a missed opportunity. Now that we know that the sun is missing, it opens up a ton of rabbit holes. For example, in the original video, I assumed that Charlotte stole the sun. Of course, there's no way to confirm or deconfirm this, but let's examine all the options I could think of to know why I think that the light bulb is with Charlotte. First, let's start with my theory. The reason why I believe that Charlotte has the sun is because the sun is a power source, and we know for a fact that Charlotte is hungry for any sort of power. Of course, maybe she has other reasons for it, like maybe she would blackmail the world machine to do her bidding. Since Charlotte knows every single character's backstory, she probably knows how powerful it is if a literal game engine's on her side, right? But something that I noticed that I don't think many people have is that we can actually see when Charlotte ran away. In this frame before Shovel Knight gets interrupted by Unithor, we can see another portal opening up on the bottom left. We know the portal in the middle is the portal to Shovel Knight's world, so I think it would make the most sense that the portal in the bottom left is the place where Charlotte ran away to. The only counter-argument I have for my own theory for this is that Charlotte's location and the location of the light bulb isn't close enough for Charlotte to take it and run away, which I guess you can say it's a possibility, but let's take a look at the other options that I've come up with. Possibility number 2, a third-party character can save the sun and bring it back to Niko. Whether it's V1, maybe Chester, or maybe a different indie game character that we don't know yet. The problem I have with this theory is that they don't really have any motives to save the sun. It literally looks like any other items inside of this world. Why would they care? Maybe it's possible that the main gang would return back to the city. Maybe Knight/Ghost would get unfrozen here and then realize, oh my god, this is Niko's son. But I don't know if the Knight would get unfrozen that quickly. I don't know how it's gonna grab the sun of all people. And also it may or may not have PTSD related to things about the sun. The final possibility for this whole sun situation is the sun is completely not recoverable and it needs to be recreated or teleported into the current location. Teleportation I could totally believe, but recreation I don't know? The problem with this starts from the fact that we don't really know what the sun can or cannot do outside of the world of OneShot. If the sun breaks outside of the world of OneShot, and especially if Niko is in a different world compared to the sun, will the sun still bring back Niko to their own reality? Or will it completely dysfunction because the reality of the sun is not the same with Niko? The only thing we know about the sun so far in Indie Cross is that if the sun gets destroyed, it would destroy the world of OneShot only, not the world that the sun is currently inhibiting, since Niko explicitly said so in their exposition. Now, of course, there's no way for Niko to actually know this, but I think this is Moro's way of telling us on how he wants the light bulb to work in Indie Cross. But yeah, while I do see some of these things possible, I think for now I believe the most that Charlotte is the one holding and stealing the light bulb for her own personal gains. Of course, there might be other options that I haven't thought of yet, so if you do have any, please let me know in the comments. Because there's still other things apart from the sun that I still have to talk about. So when I was editing this video, it turns out Moro hosted a Q&A answering a bunch of questions. In one of his sessions, he confirms that there's going to be at least one character petrified in the next episode. But what makes a lot of people pretty suspicious is that the word one is capitalized, which is You know what, let's not talk about it. Anyways, aside from that tweet, we also get a sub-confirmation that I don't think the player character is going to play a big role yet. And we also get a couple of tweets with more explaining how the Nightmare mode works. Basically, a Nightmare character will have a lot of power, but the more they use that power, the weaker it will be. Springtap, for example, wasted a lot of that power by summoning animatronics. I also forgot to mention from my original video that Nightmare characters can learn other people's backstories and open portals to other worlds. But that's not even the biggest detail I've overlooked from my original video, because as you can see after this, I may need to do a bit of explaining. Originally, I stated that the reason why Niko doesn't have any UI when scanned by the rogue is because Niko isn't native to OneShot, so it wouldn't make sense for Niko to have a UI from that game, right? Well, yeah, but while I still agree that's the case, there's still something else we have to consider. Does OneShot actually have a UI in the first place? This is one of the more commonly asked questions from my original video, and honestly, this is kind of hard to answer. Because technically, yeah, OneShot does have a UI. But the problem is, it's not a health bar UI, but it's an item UI that shows you what item Niko is holding. If you want to know if a rogue can detect a character's item UI, then technically they can with Shovel Knight, but you can also argue this is because Shovel Knight's item UI is right next to the health bar UI. So in order to create a more accurate data, we have to find a character that has an item UI with no health bar UI aside from Niko. Fortunately, we have Madeline from Celeste. In Celeste, Madeline's UI would show up every time you collect a strawberry, so technically all we need to do is to find an instance where Madeline gets scanned by a rogue and use the data from there, right? Well, yeah, but there's another problem as well. Madeline is like the only character who never got scanned. The only time where Madeline is seen inside of a drone POV is this scene with the knight. But this was at a time where Charlotte's energy was so low, she can't even scan anyone. We know this because the knight has a UI on other scenes, but not on this scene with Madeline. So part of me feels like Moro is doing this on purpose because maybe he doesn't know what UI to put with Madeline, because she doesn't have a health bar UI. And then her not having a rogue POV is just his way of trying to work around it. But then, if that's true, is the real reason why Niko doesn't have any UI in the series is because... Now, let's first give the benefit of the doubt. If our theory about Madeline is true and that Moro is trying his best to work around the fact that Madeline doesn't have a compatible UI, then it's very suspicious that Moro would put Niko, a character with the same situation as Madeline, to be put inside of a rogue POV in the first place. If this was all an accident, then why would Moro animate this scene so much to make it as detailed as possible, highlighting Niko too, more or less, and have Niko's lack of UI be an accidental feature? You can definitely argue that the lack of UI here is a conscious decision. But please remember that this can also be a mistake, that this could also be just an animation error made by Moro, that this doesn't really mean that much in the end. But you know what? I think it's okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm just really happy that Niko's here. I'm just really happy that me and a lot of people now finally have some one-shot representation outside of the game, and that the fandom is booming again because of it. As a one-shot fan, it's always a weird feeling that no matter how big the game gets, it always feels so underrated at the same time. Now, while that's an interesting idea for me to explore in a future video, my point is that I really want to spend this time to thank Moro for including this game. Having my favorite indie games being included in one series is such a magical feeling. I don't think I can express it enough. Having someone as talented as Moro to do this for us, I am very grateful. So Moro, in the off chance you see this video, I really want to thank you. What you did here was so special for us, and I hope you can recognize that as well. And I don't think this applies to just Moro, but everyone else here too. It's very easy to think about the bad things people say about us, to focus on just that and ignore everything else. And while listening to criticism can be a good thing to improve, sometimes we forget about our own accomplishments and journeys of improvement as well. So later, when you finish the video, I hope you can take a look back and see what accomplishments you've done, even if it's just a small thing. Because if remembering that can help you improve, to grow as a better person than who you are right now, that's great. That's very great.